And it was my first time in Broadway theater, standing ovation, and I was pretty moved by the whole experience. So now I'm going to dinner with Terry 40 years later or something, and I'm going to see Hamlet, the same theater I suddenly realized. And in my little seat, as I said, and they chose to begin with a voiceover in a way that sometimes they do, a little thing of Hamlet's that they move from one place to another, so they have something for him to say and the audience hears, and then the curtain goes up. And the set is nice. It's well lit, and you go, ooh. It's not fantastic. It's minimal but great, and a really good Broadway design. You're thinking nice, and the lighting is good, solid. You go, good. And then, there's a lot of stuff that happens kind of before Hamlet. There's stuff, how it is. And I'm watching, and it's all fine. The actors are solid. It's good. Everything's fine. Jude Law comes out. It's good. It's fine. Get to the first act, fine. Second act, things start to get saucy. That's when it starts to heat up. And I'm realizing that the Gertrude, little not too hefty. She's kind of lightweight. Not so much as an actress. I mean, she's just a frail woman, sort of. And Gertrude needs to have a little girth, in my opinion, but she's called Gertrude after all. And which literally, those of you who speak Scandinavian language, that means big girl. Gertrude. Gertrude. Okay? You don't give Gertrude to a little tiny chick. Big girls are called Gertrude. And the Claudius is fine, things are fine. The Laertes, sometimes really good, sometimes not, but okay. It's all going fine. But I feel, before we start, okay, pardon me, it's me on the aisle because I've got a bad leg. Then Terry, then Neil. Then there is this couple. And we have chatted with them beforehand, Pauline and Fred, from New Jersey. And Pauline and Fred are those charming, kind of like 55, 60-year-old folks. And we get from them in our little pre-curtain chit-chat that they have raised 2 kids. One of them is an anesthesiologist, I think, the girl, and the other one is finishing up at Princeton and about to go to some English university for a graduate degree in something. And they're lovely, and they're clearly, upper middle class working folks who put their kids through good schools, and, they're just like hard-working New Jersey, educated but not, nice American folks. And Pauline's got a pretty great Jersey accent, and Fred not so much. And but they're funny, and they're popping, they're cute. And we sort of get that what they've done, they got these kids raised. So now what they do is they got a little extra money. And so what they do is they come into New York once a month, once every 6 weeks, and they spend a night at the theater, they pick a play. And they've been doing this for years. But when the kids were little, and they could only do it maybe twice a year, a little second honeymoon over the weekend thing. But now the kids are gone. They can do this a little more often, they got a little more money, and some nights they stay over at the hotel, and spend it. Sometimes they go back, and it's their deal. And they have favorite restaurants, and she reads the restaurant columns and picks new places, and it's a whole going to Manhattan thing for them. And it's clearly their, it's the thing they do together that they love, and they love the theater, and they love musicals, and we're talking about musicals from last season and comparing notes on things they'd seen. It was very fun. And I'm leaning, and talking, and Neil is, and Terry, and we're leaning and talking across each other. Nice little pre-show thing. All right. So anyway, I'm back to Act 2. And things are going along fine. And I'm feeling like it's a good... It is someplace cross between a great educational production, which a friend of mine had mentioned to me as a way of describing it, and a friend in the room, and a Broadway production. It isn't quite just a good university. It's better than a good university production, and it's a credible Broadway production. But there's no fireworks going off here particularly. But okay. So then, it comes up intermission. And they did the 3-act, 2-act split that they often do, which is a little weird with Hamlet because it makes the first act a little longish, but there's no other way to do it. Plus, you get all the big speeches in the first 3 acts. There's only one left in the second act, and that sort of front loads Hamlet. But the big moment, of course, I mean, there are several big moments, but there are 2 that stood out in the first part. First, To Be or Not to Be, which, you know, the big speech. And the thing about To Be or Not to Be is that, you know, it is the ultimate open question that Shakespeare poses here, and it can really be about anything, you know? To get married or not to get married. To have a child or not to have a child. To become a doctor or not to become a doctor. You know? To kill the fucker or not to kill him. You know, whatever it is these huge questions that come along in our lives that are going to be life-changing. That when we make this particular choice, whatever we're posing there, life will never be the same after this. And that's what Hamlet's dealing with. You know, to be or not to be. And you know the rest. Whether am I going to take action here in life, which in this case means political action that's going to mess a lot of things up, probably start a war, right? Or am I going to fade back and essentially go to sleep and maybe even kill myself, some suggest? Am I gonna back out of life completely? And you know, that's a big question, and it has to be fueled by an actor's own question of the moment, whatever that is, because it has been heard so much that if you just say to be or not to be and you have no guts inside of it, then it just goes right past, because we've all been, I mean, you know, when you were a little kid, that was your Shakespeare joke, to be or not to be. Well, you know, that's the joke kids making, you know, that's the Shakespeare funny joke. So an actor better claim that. Well, Jude Law acted it just really nicely, but he didn't claim it. There wasn't his, I mean, you didn't feel a man's guts wrench when he asked the question. Now, as I recall, a year or 2 ago, Jude had some sort of messy crap going on in his life. He probably had some to-bes or not to-bes, like stay with my wife or run off with the babysitter, you know, those kind of things that were going on for him. And, you know, and give up my kids or fight for my kids or, you know, some big things. Return to the stage or be a movie whore the rest of my life. And, you know, he had some things, there were a lot of different things he could have involved in that moment, but he chose not to. He chose just to give a really nice, good, solid acting rendition of To Be or Not to Be. Then the other great moment is in another speech where Hamlet goes, "Speak the speech, I pray you." And then he proceeds to give these actors some direction, because the little play within a play that these actors are going to do is his way of exposing a whole lot of stuff and finding it out an answer he really needs. So he's directing these actors, and of course Shakespeare's lovely little joke is, you know actors, if you don't calm them down, they'll try to steal the scene, they'll be jerky. So Hamlet is trying to tell these actors to be real, essentially. And one of the lines is, "And do not saw the air, as many of your players do." And now this is one of the reasons that Jude Law isn't my favorite actor, because he does a lot of this. And in the performance, he's been doing a lot of this. So by the time he said, "and do not saw the air," the audience literally laughs at him. It was a great moment, but he knew that he was literally directing these players not to make the bad acting mistake that he sometimes makes, and the audience was in on it. That was one of the best moments in the first part. And also I have to say, those of you who don't know Hamlet deeply or haven't played it probably don't know this, but Hamlet's a fairly funny play, the first three acts. There's a lot of comedy in it from several of the characters, but especially Hamlet is witty and funny and says funny stuff. And Jude Law was great at that, by the way. He carried that part out, kind of being this smarty-ass wit guy. He did that part well. To Be or Not to Be, not so much. Okay. So we go out, and there's one of those moments where, you know, I don't want to say I'm disturbed, and he doesn't want to say he's disturbed. We're both being nice. But finally, it kind of spills, and we've sort of